All right, let's get into our next discussion now. In the face of dwindling resources, Nigeria's population size and growth rate remains an issue of concern. At different forums or different fora, people have raised alarm on the implication of Nigeria's untamed population increase.
Yes, indeed. Now, despite the warnings, no administration has adopted a decisive stand to check this trend. Presently, Nigeria's population growth is not commensurate with its GDP, that's gross domestic product growth, meaning rather than enjoy the little growth recorded in some sectors, the country will continue to be poorer. Nigerians are already struggling to cope with available social amenities and infrastructure.
Now, at last check, the Nigerian Population Commission put Nigeria's population at 198 million people, making it the most populous African nation and 7th most populous nation in the world. Now, is this Nigeria's population growth a ticking time bomb? Is a question a lot of people are asking.
Yes, indeed. And we'll be asking our guest, Biodun Showumi. He's a public affairs analyst. He's right here in the studio with us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. All right, let's even start from what the African Development Bank has said, that Nigeria's young population is actually a potential growth engine, not only for the world, for the African continent, and for the states involved. You know, that is Nigeria. But can you really say that in the case of Nigeria, that our young population is a potential growth engine, especially where you have a large percentage of that young population not being educated, no skill sets, nothing?
Or even out of school.
Out of school. 10 million, about 12 million already, about 12 million now. That number has been, jacked up.
With 10 million Almajiri street kids, without any hope for the future. Professor Additional is quite, he was right when he stated that it's a serious concern to everybody. You only need to go a little bit back into history and then understand. When you go through the histrionics, you would see why this is really worrying. In 1967, the urban population in Nigeria, was 13.8%, was growing at 13.8%, whereas today, by 2017, it's gone up to 39.8%. So how are we going to handle that from 13.4 to 39.8% with no corresponding increase in infrastructure or unemployment, for the young ones? Between 2008 and 2011, Europe has about 5.8 million
That's the
babies.
whole of Europe combined.
The whole of
That's
Europe
about 5
combined.
million, yeah.
And Nigeria alone has over 30.4 million babies within the same 3-year gap. So how are we going to plan for the future? How do you intend to plan for these children? Because even currently, all the facilities are so stretched, the government cannot meet the needs of the people. Unemployment rate is going up at an alarming rate. When you look at unemployment alone, you'll be talking about 14.something%. But when you now factor in underemployment, which is another major problem.
Exactly.
You'll be looking at something in the region of 18–19%. So how do we intend to create enough jobs to even meet the needs of those 18–19%, not to talk of the new ones coming up? What about health institutions? What about educational institutions? Are we suddenly, overnight, within a period of 20 years, going to provide 20 million university places for the youth? No. That is why you see the problem of youth restiveness in the country. Because we are on a very dangerous path. Currently, we are growing at the rate of 6.5% per annum. If you take into consideration just last year, in 2017, we grew at 2.6%. The population grew at 2.6%, whereas our projected growth, was 0.8%, less than 1%. So how can you be growing more than your economy can accommodate? But also, you take account of the government role in this.
Yes.
Between 2014 and 2016, a period of 3 years, no penny was released for family planning. By the Nigerian government, whether the past government, this present government, or any state government in Nigeria. I mean, there's no record of it. So it seems we are not serious, or we are not prepared, or we seem to be overwhelmed you know, by the scale of the problem that we need to address.
Or we don't even recognize that it is a problem.
Its existence, that it's a major problem. You only need, just take into consideration what would happen, particularly when the the UNDP, a UN agency, is projecting that our population will hit 440 million. Some people are saying 500 million, which will make us the third largest country in the world, you know, by 2050. What then happened? How would we be able to provide infrastructure, you know, to meet the challenges, to meet the aspirations of the youths? So we are sitting on a time bomb which may explode even before 2050.
Now, you know, in all of this, like you said, the government has not really invested or deliberately come up with strategies to mitigate this exponential growth in population. But is it a lack of understanding, or it is a deliberate move to just allow things, you know,
be the way
as a way Nigerians will always feel, well, children are given by God. When we get there, we get to that bridge, we'll cross it.
Yeah, I think it's largely because of the short-termist approach to planning in Nigeria in terms of achieving sustainable development and growth. Go and look at all the economic models which we've practiced in the past. We've always been, particularly since 1986, we've been concentrating on price, not on price stability, but on the value of naira to dollar since the Babangida IMF debate. So we've shifted the focus away from industrialization, from developing agriculture, from solving our energy problems, from providing roads infrastructure as proxy for the development of other sectors of the economy. We've shifted it. Go and look at the CBN. The whole debate is always about the value of naira to a dollar. It's not about price stability. You cannot have price stability where you do not produce enough goods in your country to start with. What about road infrastructure? We have enough problems in the country in terms of roads to engage over, you know, if we are serious at all, we could indirectly and directly employ over 30 million, you know, youths in building road construction and building industry. But we are not yet there. We are not even thinking of these issues. Government is not focusing on what needs to be done. We're using the wrong, in my view, wrong economic model. The CBN has a wrong focus. Rather than focusing on price stability, how do you achieve sustainable growth and development? Not in terms of just physical approach to it alone, but, you know, using the Human Development Index, you know, as a basis for that, because you cannot continually depend on the fiscal measures, you know, being used by the CBN, which centrally focus on monetary policy, rather than using the Human Development Index to achieve the goals of, you know, ensuring that we have a sustainable development in the country to meet the needs of the youth and the needs of the future. What are we going to do about the skills level? The skills level in Nigeria is so poor. You only need to go to the building industry. Look at the houses and then bring in people from neighboring countries. You'll see the difference in terms of skills level. What
and that is why
almost
every builder prefers to go across the border to get artisans from Cotonou, from Togo, even as far away as Ghana. Because there's always a difference between when it comes to finishing and paying attention to detail. You see that, you know,
so
that,
what are we doing about that?
Definitely is there. And then, you know, the infrastructure gap that you talk about. Africa has almost $200 million, billion actually, infrastructure gap. And Nigeria has a huge chunk of that, about $80 billion. If you provide infrastructure, if you begin to put infrastructure in place, the policy of, you know, providing employment for the youth population and all of it's a knock-on effect, a domino effect that this would have, a positive one at that. But we seem not to be looking in that direction. So how do we now fix this problem that really it's been described as a ticking time bomb that may just go off in our faces anytime soon?
We are beginning to, not to try and address the problem, but we are selecting sectors of the economy to fix without looking at the whole, taking an holistic view of the whole problem. For instance, the railway sector, we are trying to do something about it now. That's the railway. Agriculture, we're trying to do something, but at the same time, we have the herdsmen, you know, problem, which is also, you know, negating the achievements, you know, made in that sector. So, and the fact of the matter is, government needs to take a holistic view. We need to sit down and begin to talk to our people to say, we need to begin to seriously consider 3 children, per family. Because if we fail to address this issue now, it's a time bomb for the future.
Would that be 3 children per couple?
Per couple,
Recall,
yeah.
was it in '86 when Ibrahim Babangida, then head of state,
was recommending 4 children?
4 children per woman.
Yes, because when IBB said that, he was taking account of polygamous relationship, whereas that will not help at all. It's like making one step forward, taking one step forward, one step backward. What we need to begin to talk about is 3 children per family. The goal of that is even to slow the growth rate from 6.5%, which we have currently, to slow it down a bit so that we can at least begin to focus on meeting the needs of today's children. Forget about the future children. We're in serious trouble, when it comes to population issues. So as long as we are not addressing that, as long as we are not even talking to our own people to understand the negative effect of polygamy, polygamous relationship, particularly in relation to providing for the future, when the heart is not expanding, Nigeria is not expanding, the resources are dwindling, they are not increasing.
Yeah.
So how do we intend to take care of the future? But today, our governments at all levels, including local government, state and federal, have not paid sufficient attention to this problem.
All right. Apart from the government giving direction as to how things should be, seeing things from the holistic perspective, Nigerians themselves, those who are even enlightened, are they taking these steps towards ensuring that they give birth to people or give birth to children they can cater for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when it comes to enlightenment should tell anyone, even without government giving you inspiration. You should know yourself, weighing the resources and what you have against how many children you need to have.
Yeah, but when you hear that, in a space of since how many years now, 2014, 2015, 2016, government has not released funds for family planning, which means, and you want to imagine that part of the funds should go into public enlightenment. I doubt when was the last time you listened to the radio and you heard, oh, cut down the number of children you have because the health facilities are not enough.
That's what I'm saying. Apart from the government taking deliberate steps to enlighten the people, so many people are enlightened. They know the dangers of these things, but are they really taking it upon themselves to say, okay, from my own perspective, I want to be able to mitigate this.
I need to check myself.
Check myself, because an extra child from this family, an extra one from that, an extra one from there is what makes up this extra population we're talking about. Absolutely.
There's also some demographic realities within that issue. You will realize that some researches, they have successfully proved that there's a link between having so many children and poverty. People living in poverty or abject poverty. And also that people having lesser children, more reasonable figures like 2, 3, 4, are people who are well enlightened, who are more affluent. Also, the research has proved that the drift, from the rural area to the urban center is also as a result of people running after scarce resources, in the rural areas in terms of employment, but also that the fertility rate in the rural areas, is much higher than in the urban areas.
Exactly.
So, and whereas there's a projection that by 2050, about 70% of our population will be living in urban areas because there'll be an explosion, growth in cities. Also, research has proven that even though there's poverty in the rural areas, and then they have given birth to more children, they have no knowledge of this problem we're all talking about.
They don't even see it as a problem.
They have less crime rate, whereas the higher crime rates are in the urban centers. So
urban areas.
We are sitting on a time bomb, which when it explodes, we may not be able to handle it. Just go and look at what happened in Horn of Africa. How many people realize that dwindling resources in Horn of Africa, I'm referring to Ethiopia, Somalia, Eritrea, led to the massive crisis, you know, facing those countries. Somalia is just emerging from failed state to fragile state, you know, currently. And there still wars everywhere simply because of dwindling resources. They were giving birth to more children, and yet the resources are dwindling. So we are sitting on a time bomb. When you look at the effect of having a sharp increase in population like what we are doing currently, you are likely going to have more youth restiveness. You begin to talk more of IPOB, more of OPC, more of headsmen,
and all the
you know,
rest of
all
them.
forms of instability which will negate the growth. The other aspect is when you look at our GDP, it will make us poorer because we are producing children at the rate of 2.6%, you know, per annum, you know, and whereas our GDP is under 1%. So what that means is many and more of us will be poorer. There'll be price instability in the country rather than price stability. And except we address the needs, which is one, educate our people, you know, sensitize them about it. Two, government needs to change the economic model to focus on mass-based approaches, you know, to development.
And even when government comes up with policies, the implementation seems to be the problem.
Yeah, absolutely, because the priority of one government to the other differs.
Exactly.
For instance, what surprised me is that in the last two administrations, the current one and the last one, nobody thought it fit that we need to really fund, you know, family planning issues in order to address this problem. Because many state governments are complaining they can't provide the educational places, they can't provide the health facilities. So if you can't provide them, what then do you need to do? You need to slow down the birth rate. But we are not doing anything about it, which is worrisome.
All right, we have to leave you here now. Biodun Showomi, thank you so much for coming on the program.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
All right. We still have two major topics to discuss before the program ends. About 17 states
in
are
Nigeria
said to be insolvent in Nigeria. We'll take a look at that, and then subsequently we'll be looking at the big question: when will Nigerians in diaspora begin to vote in their elections
and help in the development of the country?
Stay with us now.